Let me introduce our speaker. Bo? Okay.
Hey y'all, my name's Bo S. and I'm an addict. And I got clean July 10th of 1974. And there were no... Real loud. You gotta shout. Okay, I've done this before. I gave a talk up in Michigan, and there were like 3 big barns and a pretty big crowd. And at the last minute, I found out there was no microphone and no loudspeaker. So I started off by saying, "My name's Bo, and I'm an addict." And I did that for an entire hour. And it really worked out pretty good, because when you're like high volume, you get kind of like caught up in it. So I think it helped me share even more. And I'm 74 years old. Next month I'm really going to be 75. No kidding. And lots of physiological things happen to a person when they get in their mid-70s. And they've all pretty much nothing terrible, but my hearing is one thing that suffered. And I have very expensive hearing aids that barely do the job. So I would like to, as I understand it, I asked what the type of talk I was going to be asked to give, and I was told it's a question and answer. And so I'm going to make a couple of preliminary. Can y'all hear me in the back? Okay, if you get to where I get all caught up in what I'm sharing, and my voice goes a little softer, I want y'all to like, don't be subtle, let me know, and I can always raise my fucking voice. Okay. So my higher power has a knack for taking care of things. Usually I don't even have to do a deliberate prayer. I can just think about it, and it happens. Okay, the other thing I wanted to take care of is, since I don't hear that good, I would like for one member of the audience to come up here and hear what the person says, the question they ask, and then tell me what it is, and I'll answer it. My vocal cords seem to work pretty good, but my ears, $4,500 hearing aids, and they barely do the job. So, try that. Okay, thank you very much. So would one of y'all come up and like be my interpreter? Oh, I don't know if I like that uniform. Okay.
I need my Help the Elderly badge.
Okay, I was Troop 454, Boy Scouts of America. So there's lots of ways I could approach this evening, and I'm not here to make you laugh or cry. And I am unusually aware of some information that you have not been able to access, because I was a participant and an eyewitness in the writing of the basic text from absolute dream to concrete reality. And my family background, a multimillionaire grandfather, 2.5 years at Georgia State before the dope kind of forced me to quit the school. Dodged the draft. I didn't like killing people. The idea was just horrible. I'm sure I'd have been a great killer, but I'm grateful to loving God I didn't have to do that. But anyway, in my mid-teens, you know, in puberty, you find out why girls are so attractive, and you spend a large part of the rest of your life figuring that one out. But in my mid-teens, a lady that was very important in my life, if you know what I mean, and 5 years later, I married her. And 60 years later, she contacted me on the internet and said, "Are you the Bo Sewell that I used to be married to?" And I said, "Yeah, it's good to hear from you." And I take that as a great compliment. If your first love feels good about you enough that 60 years later they will contact you. So, thank you, God, again. And the beatniks taught me a lot. They were mainly college students and gifted people. They played folk music, and you know, they were an art crowd for sure. And see, I was only like 14 years old, so I mean, I was little. And they played guitar. I learned how to play flamenco from hanging out with them. And a great deal of effort, you know, on my part. But gradually, I won't do a heavy drug log, but my using increased to the point to where LSD didn't really get me high anymore. And crystal did what crystal does. And I got like, you know, really affected. It dimmed the light bulb. I mean, I really couldn't think properly for a couple of years. But I kind of got furious, and when, you know, there's a thing that happens when you are using too many drugs too long and you start fucking up little things. Particularly, like, think of this. There's about 75 college students at Georgia State College going up and down an internal stairwell. And they're going boop, 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 over and over. Some of them are going down. And out of 75 or 100 of those college kids, I was the only one that missed a goddamn step and stumbled. It was like embarrassing. It wasn't for fun. Couldn't help myself. And that kind of shit, you know, really pissed me off. I mean, at me. And from sometime a little after that, every time I screwed up something, I said, "At least it ain't the dope. At least it ain't the dope." And this is all like years and years and years before I even heard of NA. And so I told you about 14, and you know, I left home about 17 or 18, and I was disabled, but I wanted to help people. There was a situation at Atlanta where a lot of teenagers were leaving home and coming down to the Peachtree Strip, 10th Street. And I created an organization called Human Improvement Project, Inc. That's HIP, Inc. But our whole reason for being was to give like a community place where kids could go and get work and not get screwed over. And I even had a famous doctor from Emory come out and treat kids for gonorrhea and other things, you know, abscesses. And I did that for a year and a half. And the Vietnam War stopped and the hippie movement stopped. But it got so dangerous the last year that I was down there. I was so famous and well known that I didn't have money, I didn't have bodyguards, and I started carrying a loaded pistol. I got a license and everything, all that was legal. But you know, the personal attacks, I mean, fighting big guys, you can, if you're good and quick, you can win fights. But sooner or later, you're going to get hurt or hurt somebody. And I didn't want either one, so the gun just slowed things down. On the personal attack thing. And, but it probably kept me alive, you know, helping others, helping, I can tell you long stories. I'm working on my personal autobiography right now. I'm trying to write that down. If I finish my autobiography, then maybe the money from that will help my children, because my children paid a big price for what Daddy was doing. And I did not, sometimes you hear about a movie and you make the time, you show up, pay your money, go in and sit down, enjoy a good movie. I stumbled into this whole situation, recovery, world services, writing the basic text. It just came. I didn't do it. I just kept doing the next thing. And the main thing that worried me after that time on the strip was that I was going to start having feelings for NA and not have worked my steps. I thought, God, I'll be a phony baloney. And the idea of that was very scary to me. And, you know, if you didn't come to nothing, you know, I would benefit from the 12 steps, but also to kind of validate me as a member. And it was not so easy to do. There was not that much basic text and, you know, living clean and whatever to read and places to go and members to sponsor and talk to and stuff. Newcomers to help. That's how we get help. But I wanted to know. And at one point I even went to Synanon. I mean, I called up Chuck Dietrich's and invited myself out there and spent about 3 days and did the game a couple of times. But, and they were amazed to find out I was still drinking beer. But you know, I don't like putting on a show or being a phony baloney. I'd rather be an honest fuck up than a famous jerk. Right. And it just makes you creepy, you know. So the main thing on the East Coast was there was one meeting a week for the first year, and then we had a second meeting. And after 3 years, we had 7 meetings a week. And everybody was saying, who's working on our book? Well, why didn't NA have a book? I mean, what is going on? And all the members that I knew and met, and I was the Atlanta Lit Chair, so I shipped literature to all the new meetings around the South. And then eventually I was shipping to South Florida and Maine. I mean, you know, and so I met all of the new people. And we all wanted to know who's working on the book and how can we help. So finally, in 1977, I came to the World Convention in San Francisco at the Jacques Carr Hotel, and I kept asking people, who's working on the book? And they said, go down to registration and talk to Jimmy Kay and other people, maybe they can help you with that. So I went down there, hey Jimmy, blah, blah, blah. And Jimmy says, hey Greg, here's a guy from Atlanta who wants to know about the book. So I went off with Greg and we talked a while. And you know, eventually, by a while, I'm talking about 3 or 4 hours. So eventually I popped the big question. I say, well, who is working on the book? And he said, he had a very remarkable answer. He said, this is the chairman of the board of trustees that wrote our service structure in the NA tree. He said, nobody. I thought of that a minute. I said, well, who can write on the book? He thought about it a second or two, and he said, any member. I said, well, I'm a member. And over the next 2 years, he taught the service structure to me, which is a group conscience-driven service structure. Corporations hate any entity that can tell them what to do. And you know, our history is not AA's history. If you are like I was, you started in the other program and you read a lot of their material with the idea that some of that would help Narcotics Anonymous, help us live longer and live better, which to me is what the recovery program is all about. And especially, I think that time on the strip, it really helped me, because I mean, I was on TV all the time, shit like that, so I was you know, that was just nasty to me, like play acting. I could tell, as long as I could tell the truth, that was okay. But then in program, getting real about the 12 steps in Narcotics Anonymous, I started on step 1. And I would just beat a step to death, you know, for weeks if necessary, or even months. But I had a lot of trouble saying, my name is, I'm manageable. And I practiced it until I could say, my name is Bo, and I'm an addict, and my life's become unmanageable. And at that point, I thought, well, I'd like some power now. So I went to look for my higher power, whatever that was. But see, I studied in theosophy. That same girl that I married later on, Claudia, she had taught me a lot about life and living. And so she sent me to Theosophical Society, which is an international fellowship of men and women all over the world. Helena Blavatsky started, and a Russian woman started in the the early part of the century. And she's why you grew up knowing what Hinduism and Buddhism and other things were about. So she was a very forceful woman. She has like pictures of her like that. But she was a humdinger, and she was probably one of us. At 13, she was left for dead with a knife in her side in Algiers. So she'd really been around the block. All I'm saying that about is that I studied religion and spirituality, esoteric stuff, when I was 14 years old, and 15 and 16. I've been still doing. I still study stuff on YouTube almost every day for an hour or two, and I'm still learning new stuff I never knew about before. So the first meeting I went to, maybe not the first, but the first one when I was really there examining the Fellowship of NA and of AA, and on the wall they had a big poster that said, "The Spirit is deep and vast, full of power and life." And I thought, okay, I can dig that. And that's still the way I feel about God. I mean, that's why people that are not ready don't believe in God. And that's the right thing for them, you know. And it's a very bad practice to try to force divine wisdom on somebody that's not ready for it. It tortures them. It's horrible. Just bite your tongue or whatever you have to do, but don't fall into that trap. Instead, just be their friend, hold their hand or something, pat them on the back, and how would you like your coffee? And you know, just little human things, because that's what they need to begin with. The deepest craving in human nature is the craving to be appreciated. And possibly realizing that's why we welcome newcomers the way we do. Because we know about their loneliness and the bravery it takes to walk up those steps to the meeting. So I'll move on from that. But I found a new take on higher power, and it was different than anything I studied before. And a lot of stuff is denied us in our open culture in the United States, in the English-speaking world. And that's a shame, you know. Like, I don't think it's for everybody, so I can't recommend it. You find a higher power that works for you. You find a shoe that fits your foot. You know, when you walk the spiritual path, you don't want your foot aching. You know, you don't need a damn blister. But if you really, the greater your desire, the deeper you can go. And if you're praying to be used as an instrument to help others, all bets are off. I mean, anything can happen. And now, to get along with this, are you about, no, he's going to do it. You asking a question?
I am going to ask a question if you don't mind. Are you ready for that?
Okay, let's just jump right ahead to that.
All right. What was the process like at the beginning of writing our book?
What
was the process like at the beginning of writing the book?
I can compress all I need to say in a couple of short sentences here. I had studied the service structure for 2 years with Greg, and he believed in group conscience, and so did I. And it was, if you want to call it a theory, you can, but the simple truth is that if everybody has every question they have answered, and everybody's free to question and participate in a project, you have a damn good project. You can build a dam, you can finish the electric highway or whatever they're trying to build out here, but nothing, that's an unstoppable force. And I believe in that force, you know. And if you just give the people a way to go, if you just feed them accurate, up-to-date information over a period of 2 or 3 years, they become empowered to take effective action where you're not stepping on anybody else's toes, but you're doing your part, and a great good becomes possible. So I was elected World Lit Chair at the World Service Conference, the 2nd year of its existence in 1979. And like, I knew the truth, you know, before I even came up there. But I got nominated and elected to chair the Lit Committee because I was the only member at the time that had sent in 75 or 80 pages of input. And I would just make up topics and I would write them, you know, like resentment's kill was the first essay like that. They're 2 or 3 pages. And so I knew what it felt like, and I had to create some evidence. So the first year we had a conference in Wichita, Kansas, and 25 people showed up, and we opened the conference with the same words for the first 3 conferences, and that's, well, we're here, what do you think's possible this weekend? And I'd go down the table to every single person in the room and write down what they said. So I had a list of their name and who recommended what. And there were several duplications, but that's how we operated, by group conscience. So everybody's important, everybody's in on it. Nobody's blocking the doorway. There's nobody tripping you up by error or intent. We were deliberately, fiercely loving, caring, and kind, consistently. And if we fucked up, we just admitted it promptly and apologized, and as a group we went on. And that caught on. And so we said, well, what do we need? We need some kind of guidelines or something, because, you know, the entire entry in the, what is that? Somebody praying? We need some kind of guide. You know, I was going to cite something from the service structure, but I don't need to do that. Just, we made a list. What needs to be in the handbook that we're going to put together? And how to raise money within traditions, how to form a local lit committee, how to form a newsletter, how to write your story, topics to write on, all these different things. And then we broke up into little workshops, and you 4 go over there and do this one, and you chose yourself, you know, you put group of 4, which one do you want to work on? And out of the choices available, you pick the one, that's fine. And then, you know, another 3 or 4 people. It was only 25 of us, so we'd only have like 3 or 4 workshops going at any given time. But we went over everything. And then almost anything that I bring up and answer tonight, I will not have the time. I could take 2 weeks and do what you're asking. So I accept the fact, I'm powerless over the fact that's not going to be possible. But I will be glad to talk to you after the talk tonight or tomorrow or the rest of the time here or when I go back to Georgia. So that's it. So, whole bunch of trouble. We finally got a handbook. And that's how we work together. And that's how everybody was in on it. Everybody had a copy. Everybody knew what they could do to help. And they just set about doing it. And the input built up. But the lit committees, we had more and more local lit committees. So that's how we worked together. And everybody paid their own travel and lost time from work. And that was just expected. My house rent was $125 a month. And my phone bill was $200 a month, and I would sometimes get my phone cut off. And if you didn't get your phone cut off now and then, you want nothing in World Services.
Does anybody else have a question that they'd like to ask?
What was the hardest part of putting the book together?
What was the hardest part of putting the book together?
To what?
What was the hardest part of putting the book together?
Just ongoing process of surrender. We just kept surrendering and praying. And it all just fell together beautifully as if we had it planned. Maybe God had it planned. And also, when I was slow in some of my report writing and communication and stuff like that, this is what it felt like. It was like the spirit of dead addicts just made a column right behind my ass, and I just woke right up and stay busy. And so a lot of it was like that, and we could see it coming together. And we did have some. I'm going to eventually get to some of the railroad ties that we had to jump over. But did I answer the question?
Yes, you did.
Chris?
So, do you think it's okay that it's $14 for the book now?
$14 for the book now.
Of what?
Do you think that it's okay that the book costs $14 now?
Well, there's a talented writer in Canada. I don't yet know the person, but you can go to thefix.com. And this guy wrote some interesting material. I've sort of forgotten the question, but he can answer those things.
Is it okay that the book is $14?
Well, what he did was a chart, and he said the first year it was approved, like 1982 and 83. It was the markup from cost was 130%, and 3 years later the markup was 200%, and then in 2017 the gross income of WSO was $9.5 million, and the markup was 400%. So that's the part that I have trouble with, because we do service, and we permitted the book to be sold with some markup, but I think that was a grave error, because we monetized the spiritual work and made it into a commodity and a mercantile product, which that's unfair, because we didn't take money and we didn't ask for personal credit. And you know, I think it ought to be cost plus 10, maybe 20%. But you know, I told you I had a grandfather that was a multimillionaire, but that was the truth. And I'm not a bit worried about or afraid of $9 million. I ain't gonna sell my soul for no lousy $9 million. I don't come cheap.
We got Pat.
Another question.
Yeah, my question is, was Jimmy K in there in the beginning on that, and how was it working with him?
Was Jimmy K in on the beginning of the book, and how was it working with him?
very confusing. There was always talk of Jimmy's going to write the book. Jimmy's going to write the book. WSO is the center of the NA world, and for a long time that was true. And I think that when word came to WSO that we were nearly completing a review form, now called the Gray Book, and then that we wanted to send it out free to every group in the world. And then 2 weeks later, the fellowship sent us $17,000. And all of a sudden, there's a certain tension in the air. But we just printed a bunch of books and just located every meeting in the face of the planet Earth and sent it to them. I always thought that was kind of neat. And that everybody would kind of understand that. I mean, India and all those other, Australia, all those places, because they were all members.
Frank?
Yeah, before meetings were legal, and you had to do underground meetings such as candlelight meetings and stuff like that, how difficult was that? And was there anything like people getting in trouble with the law? What was that like?
Okay, before meetings were legal, how difficult was that? And did people actually get in trouble, arrested or whatever?
Well, nobody likes to get arrested, usually. It's very but beats sleeping under a bridge. But
Beats sleeping under a bridge.
But the Rockefeller Act, a lot of stuff, bad stuff, addicts, happened in 1916, as in the Harrison Act. And it forbade known felons to assemble, so you couldn't have a meeting. And that was acted upon. And I understand there were similar situations in Los Angeles because people would, sometimes I heard some people did get arrested going out on a meeting, but the charge would be not addiction, it would be known felons assembling, or that was the main thing. And the regular meetings just had a different meeting place every week, and so you had to be part of the group to know where it's going to meet. And then in New York, we used to say when we were building enthusiasm for the basic text, we said, first the book, then New York. First the book, then New York. And we were going to go marching down, the Verrazano Narrows Bridge or some shit where they were holding the book up. But see, that never happened. And I always thought that the New York state changed the law, or the municipality changed the law when we got the basic text done in 82, 83, right? But that was not what happened. And somebody from New York straightened me out. Now, if anything I say tonight is not 100% head-on correct and accurate, please correct me. I will kiss your ass. I will thank you. Because I'm giving you the best I got. It's all I've got to work with. And thank you. If I've got something wrong, I'm going to keep repeating it for the rest of my life. And I'm 74. I'm going to be 75 next month. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Jason?
Bo, can you tell us about, so one of my favorite stories about the basic text was how they raised the money in order to get those books out to the rest of the world.
Can you tell the story about how they raised the money to get the books out?
Yeah, the most famous story about that, we raised it within our own ranks, personal contributions and checks and stuff. But the second World Lit Conference was held, see, Wichita was the center of the United States for all practical purposes, and FedEx, I think, is their headquarters there. But 200 miles up the road is Lincoln, Nebraska. And wouldn't you know it, the World Convention happened to be in Wichita. And so right after the Wichita World Convention, a whole lot of us went up the road to Lincoln, Nebraska. And we were at the level organizationally where we all put $5 or $10 or nothing into hat and went out and bought a bunch of Makins and ate chili. And we all slept in the host living room. So boys and girls all night long was and we just laughed, you know, because we needed to keep a sense of humor. And that same host committee used to give blood to buy their dope, and they need to send out flyers. And they said, we need money for postage. And so they went down to the blood bank and gave their blood, and after a while they had enough money and went to the post office and, you know, mailed all the flyers.
Nice.
That sounds like it's sort of cooked up or something, but it was just, you know, we was just doing the best we can, and we had no financial support from any outside force ever.
Yeah.
All right. How long did it take you to become comfortable with your sobriety?
How long did it take you to become comfortable with your clean time?
So help me God, I never think about it.
Hey, check this out. What he said. One more time.
It's,
You never think about it.
no, I know it's 45 years, but that to me, that's almost a technical detail. I don't give a fuck, you know? What I want is another 45 years.
That's right. Pasquale.
How did the name Basic Text come about?
How did the name Basic Text come about?
There were various AA materials that referred to their big book as their basic text, and so it's just a natural evolution.
Nice.
And if somebody suggested a better name at the time, we would have gone for it.
What is your favorite part of the book and why?
What is your favorite part of the book and why? First page.
Probably the funniest part is the last paragraph, and it says the chapter's name is More will be revealed. That's the last line of the AA Big Book. More will be revealed. Get it? And Bill Wilson came to me in some dreams and said, all you had to do is keep doing the next thing. I said, I can do that. But, you know, it was, seriously, neuroscience is making major breakthroughs. There's a lot more becoming known. You're not ready to hear the rest of it. You have to be mentally and emotionally prepared. But the disease concept explains addiction enough that we can utilize it to learn to live clean and grow spiritually and devote ourselves to others. But it's like we come into the program like a worm, and then as we grow through the steps, we become angelic. And my favorite words for that is loving, caring, and kind. I had trouble getting here this weekend. I missed my flight Thursday. And it's a big deal coming up. I didn't have that, you know, anger or inferiority or anything. The reason is to wake my ass up. This is the first time that I've really done a question and answer like this in California since the basic text was written. And my personal perception, I could be wrong, but it feels like I was ostracized because I was so successful that a dominant group of people said, well, he's just softening us up. He's just going to sue for the copyrights. You know, as the amounts of income went way above, you know, $1 or $2 or $3 million. You can't buy the recovery of one addict with $1 million. So that's nothing. Thank you.
Mary Carol?
Good question.
Do you think the World Service structure as we know it today should be restructured, and if so, how?
Do you think the World Service structure, as we know it today, should be restructured? And if so, how?
I think the most polite response to that is the word reformation. And I believe in group conscience, and we had a beautiful system in place that gave every member in the world could write down a motion in their home group and pass it along to their area committee, pass it along to the region, pass it along to the World Service Conference subcommittee for that, and get a response, possibly a motion. An individual could do that. Any one of you could do that. That's the structure I supported and believe in. I think, and understand, I'm being deliberately honest. I'm not sticking my neck out or putting my ass on the line, but I really believe in you people. And I believe the same spirit that was in the people that wrote your basic text are in Moscow, in St. Petersburg, and Muscat, and Oman. Because I was there last year. And I know that they're my friends. They'll probably be my lifelong friends from this point forward. And new ones, Mosito, Ali, and Mombasa. There's a wonderful fellowship going out there. And that little dimple in Southern California is just not really on the map. You know, they're doing great things. They're staying clean. We're innovating new things. And the people running the government and running pharmaceutical companies and medicine and military and everything else, we fly under the radar. They think we're a joke. The longer they think that, the better, because they're dangerous. I mean, the world ran out of heroin because the Mino Taliban moved in and forced all the farmers to stop growing opium. So they had for a few years, they had a, heroin deficit or something. So they sent in the troops and straightened out Afghanistan, and now they're the heroin capital of the world. So we are on our own, and if we don't learn to believe in one another and keep faith with the fellowship and believe in our own people, you can just fill in the blank. But something big, beautiful, and grand is happening. This excites me. And it's I guess it's just God's greater plan or something.
Todd? I just wanted to know, how did you come up with the word clean instead of sober,
How did we come up with the word clean instead of sober?
Instead of what?
How did we come up with the word clean instead of sober?
Clean doesn't replace service. Clean is not.
No, sober. Sober. Why do we use clean as opposed to sober?
It sounds like you're saying cervix.
Sober. 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 Alcohol. Sober.
Alcohol instead of sober.
Yes.
The O finally gets me. Wait. Well, most drug addicts love to play with language, and sober just has a connotation of being boring and dull. And our people are just a little more jazzed up than that.
There we go.
And they decided, I was the helper. That's how I kept my ego in check. I was their servant.
He said addicts are extra. Do you have a question over there?
Yeah, what has been what's your motivation to stay clean?
What is your motivation to stay clean?
Whose?
Yours.
Mine?
Yeah.
Oh, I have my mind, I have my body, I have my friends, I have a viewpoint of the whole planet and even the universe coming together. And I mean, you know, that's the kind of addict I was. I was into all that stuff. I was a biology major at Georgia State. I can still say spiral trichodympha spiral, which is Latin for mesicaphorite that lives in the gut of a termite, and it's the only animal that can eat cellulose. So.
He said sanity. Right? Sanity, right? You had a question?
Yeah. And, but can you explain what the open participatory process is and why the basic text is different?
Can you repeat the question?
What is the open participatory process?
What is the open participatory process?
Good question. Thanks. This trip to California has been a success. Okay, number one, you've got the population of Narcotics Anonymous. And then you got some people that are specifically interested in literature, H&I, public information, or whatever. And they kind of, I've forgotten the question.
What is the open participatory process?
The open participatory process is you announce the event, let's say 6 months or more in advance, and you send them all the information you have and the instructions to anything else that we come up with is going to be in your mailbox or your email list or whatever, or your text messages. But so we make sure everybody is as super informed as we possibly can. So then we show up and we have a greeting session where we go around and make it plain that everybody is important here by listening to every single person in attendance. Why are you here? What would you like to see? And then we write down notes on that, and then that's our agenda, you know. And everybody's in it. Everybody's open. There's no backroom deals. We despise that stuff. It would be like child molestation or something, just horrid. The idea of rigging a game or cheating the people, just, you know, we did stop the Vietnam War, you know. And we were very serious about our people living longer and living better. So open participatory processing allows everybody. You ever heard of mastermind? It's kind of like that. Anybody involved, they can even telegraph shit in. They can even send in, you know, today they could, you know, you could have computer portals. It's amazing. But it's everybody that's in on it. And the funny thing, the delightful thing about open participatory process, we can work for 2 or 3 hours, go to lunch, and come back and we think, well, we did all that work, like the work had some kind of intrinsic value. And then some newcomer that came in late after lunch will throw their hand, what about so-and-so? And the whole house of cards will fall in. Because that's open participatory, because anybody in the room, and the people that know the least sometimes have a very wide viewpoint. And we get so hung up on the words and who's getting the credit a little bit, you know, we're only human. But, and then a newcomer can blow it out of the water. And my favorite story about a literature worker participating in the open participatory process, a cowboy out on the Platte River talked to his trail boss and got time off to ride his horse over to Lincoln, Nebraska, because there were some addicts working on a book. And so he rode his horse, probably, you know, had to take food and all that, found a place outside of town to leave his horse, and then probably walked or hitchhiked maybe on into town to the big federal building downtown. That's where we go to the conference. And he said, well, I'm over here from the Reverend, I want to help with this book. I was addicted in the trenches in World War II. He said, but I can't read and write. Is there anything I can do to help? So they brought him over to me because I was a chairperson. And I put it together real quick, and this young lady, I said, go with him and write down his story for him. You just tell her your story, and she'll write it down, okay? So that's what we did. And to me, that was a moment of glory to me.
Pat?
Just wondering if he was still involved in the World Service right now, as of today, and if he is his founding views still welcome there?
Are you still involved with World Service, and if so, are your views welcome there?
Well, I don't think anybody here has trouble understanding that money, profit, and prestige can drive us addicts insane. And they've all things considered, if, you know, with our intense popularity, and we'd just written the basic text from scratch with no outside help, raised all that money, we could have taken over the service structure. We certainly had the ability, dexterity, and the position, and the support, and very, very popular. You see, I was tired. I wanted to go home and take care of my little wife and my children. And I had to let somebody else run it. And in years past, there have been some pretty poor decisions, I think. But I will almost certainly guarantee you, smarter people can screw things up worse than dumb people.
Right.
So we're pretty smart. You see the danger? We were inventorying, we were aware of that. And we weren't interested in the job. And chances are, if we'd just taken over, like out of ego or something, we could have done much worse. Much worse. And so, I'd rather praise the things they do well and hope that they get better in some areas. But overall, and probably one of the most important things I can say here tonight from my perspective, the Narcotics Anonymous basic text, Narcotics Anonymous, is a work of art. It's like a Rembrandt. And you can't put a price on that. And it's treated like a commercial item. And it's changed for the marketplace. And the marketplace ain't us to the booksellers. And I'm not throwing stones. I mean, we're all vulnerable. But I think it's going to get better. I think more and more people, because of the internet and an intense desire to know what's going on, more and more good people are going to get better. And only when you all hit 51% of understanding what the fuck's going on can it get better. Because for it to get better, we would all think it would be worth it only if it's going to make it better and endure through time. And it will not get better and endure through time until you become more informed. And it's very hard to inform somebody, because if you're not careful, you just piss them off and you lose your audience. So I try to take it step by step and just let God call the shots. It'll get better though, because it's a world full of addicts out there, and they're hungry, they want more.
What do you think the most important part of the book is? To you, what is the most important part?
What is the most important part of the book to you?
Well, for recovery, the steps chapter, and for the spirituality, the traditions chapter. I probably have a favorite like that, but I don't look at it that way. To put it mildly, I'm kind of detached. But I still read it, I still love it. And I support the miracle. But you know, instead of walking away from World Services, I was there from 79 to 89. I just went home and I had more time to write, so I've written several more books, you know. And we got no input on employment for the basic text. We got no input on the topic of sex. So we didn't feel like it was our job to make up anything. And Mama read, so we wrote another book that's got 27 chapters in it. But I'm not here to promote that. I'm just saying that later we came up with some very good material. And my mother said, well, that chapter on sex, well, that's not erotic. And I thought, well, if it's good enough for Mama, it's good enough for me. And remember, it says there's many more reasons than love for somebody to have sex with you. Okay.
Jason.
So, well, I heard that people were sleeping on the stages and everything, and they were cutting paper with the cut and paste because they were typewriters.
He heard that there was people sleeping on the stage and they were doing actual cut and paste with scissors and glue. Can you tell that story?
Oh, I love that story. When it happened, it was funny, but it was necessary. I think the best time, and let it stand for the other times, because it happened conference after conference. You know, we're set up, and we go to the office supply store, and we're getting supplies, and we've got good photocopiers and good typewriters and typists and stuff. And we go to the office supply store and say, we need some scissors. And the lady says, oh, here's some excellent scissors. Like, how about these? These are only $6.99. And I probably looked a little hurt, and I said, no, we want some smaller scissors, you know, kind of like what kids use in school. And she says, oh, those things, they're 39 cents. And I said, yeah, we want 50 of those. And then a lot of that glue stick stuff. And see, the backstory on that was we had a bias. We had 800 pages of input. So we photocopied the whole thing and put it to the side for, you know, safety. And we cut up the copies into different subjects based on the white booklet, because everybody was familiar with that, and our trustee recommended that. So we thought it was a good idea, and everybody found it workable. So we could divide all those little sticks of paper, more than 800 by damn sight. And we said, and then we would have a kind of a call, like we could do this whole room. Who's got input on chapter 1, first page? And then go over the written input on that, and then go to page 2. And so on in different workshops through the whole 10 chapters. We added 3 more chapters, like just of the day, and more will be revealed, you know, whatever. But it was ideal. It worked like a charm. And our bias was to include every member's written input verbatim, as close to verbatim as possible. And here's my pitch. This is what I would say. You're the lit committee, and I'm Bo, your chairperson. I'm saying, now, you're going to get to put your little word or two or your sentence into this book someplace, because you're here. You care enough to get in your car and drive over here to Lincoln or wherever we are, Memphis. And then all these written pieces of input, that person, 100 people thought of that, 5 of them made it to the mailbox, and 3 of them had a stamp. So I want you to multiply the written input by 10, and you're still here. You're going to have your input. You're going to have your input. But our job is to make sure their written input gets into their book. And everybody went like, that's cool. So,
Heather?
So we're actually about to end the meeting, but do you have any closing comments you'd like to make?
Do you have any closing comments? We're going to end.
Have what?
We are going to end the meeting. Do you have any closing comments?
What we're going to do in the next few years is similar to building the pyramid from scratch. And you won't be able to work on the car if you don't know the manual. So start getting names and numbers and email addresses and free digital downloads from a number of sources. And, you know, when the office sued Grateful Dave, read the transcript from this file. Don't take somebody's word for it. You know, informed, like when I sponsor people or I'm getting with somebody that's asking good questions, I say, look, I'll tell you what I got, but the best thing I can do is introduce you to the subject, and then you go and check all the sources. So when somebody asks you about it, you'll say, well, I was wondering about that, and I went and looked, and what I found out was blank. You know, to where it's your understanding, that way when you put your heart and soul in it, not only will you understand and be fit to do open participatory processing, you'll also understand that your chairperson or your workshop leader or whatever, because they all checked each, so a lot of times they just took turns. But everybody's in on it. Nobody is left out. That's open participatory. And one lady up in Maryland who's much smarter than I am, she's very literate, but she says it's not the only way you can write a book, it's just the very best way you can write a book. And I believe our people deserve the very best. And I say that based on my association with members in Moscow and Oman and Africa and other places. So, keep coming back.